I'm pretty sure we all heard these sayings when figure drawing. An adult is 8 heads high, or a child is 5 heads high. Now, that's all correct and factual, but what I'm going to show you is a simpler way when it comes to anatomy proportions. And again, it revolves around a box. So when we start learning to draw the human anatomy, we should start with the head. And this box is the head. But also, now it becomes a measuring tool. You're probably now saying, a measuring tool? Here, let me explain. In this photo, you can see that it's cut off, but this actually helps me illustrate my point by focusing on the rib cage. So after we find the height of the head, which is found by the box, what you do here is to take that head measurement to find the height of the rib cage, which is 1.5 heads tall, which now translates to 1.5 boxes. To show you the measurements, I will now shade those boxes. Now, knowing how to use the boxes as a measuring tool, here's another tip. You can use your fingers or drawing tool to help you make sure your measurements are correct. 1 box, half a box. You're probably wondering, what was the boxes on the side of the head? Now, this is the tricky part. Even though in the photo you can see 3 boxes across, you may think it's correct because the boxes line up with the shoulder. But we are looking for the width of the rib cage. If you were to add the shoulders, you can see the rib cage would be very massive. But what I would usually say when placing 3 boxes across is that you should imagine the heads turning to its side, which looks like this. So when you look at her face, you can see how the boxes on the sides are pretty close to the same width of her face. So now that we know, once you draw the box for the head, it becomes the measuring stick for the rib cage, which is 1.5 boxes. But now, for the final box measurement, the pelvis, it's just a 1 box high. Now for the width of the pelvis, you should match it up with the rib cage. Again, we are not having the boxes follow the muscles like the shoulders or the glutes. We are following the bones. Now the spacing between the rib cage and pelvis, in reality, is the length of your fingertips to your knuckles. Or you can say half your hand. To find this in your drawing, you would use half a box because the rib cage is 1.5 boxes. So all you need to do is imagine the rib cage as 2 boxes and slicing off the bottom half, and there's your space between the rib cage and pelvis. Here's a really cool tip. Once you establish the torso, you can then take the top line of the rib cage and the bottom line of the pelvis, and this now becomes the length of the legs. For the measurements of the arms and legs, this depends on your model. Some people have short arms or legs. But for symmetrical purposes, the length of the humerus should be equal length of the forearms. Same principles for the legs. Now, everything I've just shown you is just a basic principle of how the boxes can help you measure your drawings, and most importantly, making your human anatomy proportionally correct. In this chapter, we will talk about object drawing or technical drawing. The principle behind this is taking a 3D box and using that framework to draw any objects using science. I draw a square. Now, if you want to find the center of that square, you connect the corners with an X. Now, the center of that X, you draw 2 lines which divides the X, like so. And now you have a square that looks like this. This is actually the technical way of drawing a perfect freehand circle. Unfortunately, I am just a mere mortal and will gesture a bunch of circles till I achieve the correct circle using the ellipse tool. Now you're wondering, what does this do for your drawings or paintings? The simple answer is, everything can be created mathematically, scientifically, or technically through a box. As you can see, I'm now using a 3D box to create a 3D cylinder. This technical aspect of drawing is very, very time consuming, but it is the most fundamental way to creating everything in a very precise way. This method is to help train your eyes when viewing everything. To illustrate what most artists see when viewing an object before they draw it, I will use this picture of a cup of coffee to give you a first-person perspective of how I view things. Now, I could go on talking about creating through 3D boxes, but instead, I'm gonna just show you through these quick time lapses of how I break down objects to the most simple 3D box forms.